My ex-war buddy lied under oath so he could steal my son and my life. It's been 10 years, and now I just found out he's been beating my boy. I'm done playing nice. I'm taking my son back, no matter what it costs. I walked into that courtroom thinking the worst was behind me. The custody battle had dragged on for nearly a year, and I'd done everything right. Passed every psychological eval, stayed clean, showed up to every appointment, every supervised visit. I thought all I had to do was prove I wasn't the monster Renee made me out to be. I was wrong. My name's Jack Murphy. I'm 41, live just outside Knoxville, Tennessee. I served 12 years in the Marines, 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. I've got scars most people can't see, and a 6-year-old son named Leo who, back then, was the only thing keeping me going. I remember sitting on that hard wooden bench in court, watching Renee dab her eyes like she was mourning a tragedy instead of orchestrating one. I was nervous, yeah, but I believed the truth would matter. Then Mason walked in. He looked good, crisp suit, polished shoes. The last time I saw him was over beers a few months back. He was still calling me brother then, said he had my back. I remember smiling when he took the stand. I thought he was here to help. Instead, he looked right at the judge and said, Jack has unaddressed PTSD. I saw him get violent. I saw him snap in front of Leo. I didn't understand. My mouth went dry. I stood up, but my lawyer pulled me down, told me to stay calm. Mason kept going. He said there was video footage from a camera in his guest room, footage that showed me screaming, punching walls while Leo cried in the corner. Then he read out texts. Texts he said were from me. Stuff like, I lose control sometimes. I scare myself. It was all fake, every bit of it, but it didn't matter. Renee put on a damn performance. Clutched her chest, wiped away tears, said she had no idea I'd been so unstable. I always told myself he was just having a bad day, she whispered to the judge. But if Mason saw it too, I wanted to scream. Instead, I watched the judge scribble something down. I watched the bailiff nod. And then I heard the words, full custody to the mother. No contact granted to Mr. Murphy at this time. No contact, not even supervised. Not a phone call, not a photo. I walked out of that courthouse with my hands shaking and my world gone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in my truck for 2 hours, staring at the steering wheel, while people passed by like I wasn't even there. Mason didn't look at me when he left. Renee did. Her eyes were dry. That night, I took the uniform I'd kept folded in my closet, the one with my medals pinned to it, and shoved it in a box. Because what the hell did honor mean if the people who knew you best could lie like that? That was the day I lost my son, and the day I stopped believing in friends. It was a Tuesday morning when the call came. I was halfway through my shift at a private security job outside of Chattanooga, sipping bad coffee and staring at the bank's main entrance like I had for the last 3 years. Nothing ever happened here. That was the whole point. My phone buzzed in my jacket. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Mr. Jack Murphy? A woman asked, her voice calm but professional. Speaking. This is Shelby Regional Medical Center in Hendersonville. We have a 16-year-old patient named Leo Murphy. You're listed as his emergency contact. I froze. What? My voice cracked. He was brought in after a motorcycle accident. He's stable, but we need a guardian present. Can you come in? My legs didn't move for a second, just the sound of blood pounding in my ears. Leo, my son, the same kid I hadn't seen or heard from in 10 years. Since the courtroom, since everything. I'll be there, I said before I even realized I was standing. I left my badge and sidearm on the desk and drove like my life depended on it. 100-mile stretch of highway blurred under my tires. I didn't care. I didn't think. I just kept hearing the nurse's voice. Emergency contact. I hadn't been anyone's anything for a long time. Not after the court stripped me of custody and ordered me to stay away. Not after Renee and Mason made sure Leo never saw my letters, never got my birthday cards, never heard my side of the story. And yet, somehow, my name was still listed. Somehow, in some file buried deep in the system, I still mattered. By the time I reached the hospital, my hands were shaking. The woman at the front desk asked me to wait. I sat in a plastic chair under harsh fluorescent lights, heart thudding against my ribs. It felt like I was back in combat, waiting for orders, except this time I had no mission, no weapon, just 1,000 unanswered questions and a name I hadn't dared say out loud in years. Leo. He was 16 now. I had missed everything. His first day of middle school, his first job, maybe even his first girlfriend. I didn't know who he was anymore. I didn't even know if he'd want to see me. But I was there. For the first time in a decade, I was there. And I wasn't going anywhere. The moment I stepped through the hospital doors, I felt like I couldn't breathe. It had been 10 years since I'd last seen Leo. 10 years since that courtroom tore him from my life. I'd imagined this reunion 1,000 ways, but none of them started with a nurse escorting me through sterile white halls toward the trauma wing. None of them included Mason and Renee waiting outside his room like they belonged there. They were sitting on a bench, side by side. Mason was hunched forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was praying. Renee had her arms crossed tight, lips pressed thin. Mason saw me first. He stood up slow, like he wasn't sure if he was going to shake my hand or punch me. Jack, he said, voice low. I didn't answer. I just stared at him. The man who cost me everything. You shouldn't be here, Renee said, rising too. Leo's been through enough. He listed me as his emergency contact. I cut in. So unless you want to explain that to a judge, I suggest you move. Mason stepped in front of her. Let's talk. Alone. He led me down the hallway to a quiet alcove near a vending machine. For a minute, neither of us said anything. I watched the red blinking light on the Coke machine and tried to keep my fists unclenched. You want to know why he listed you? Mason said finally. Because the kid's been obsessed. Always asking about you. Always digging. I turned to face him. Digging for what? The truth you buried. He gave a half smile, no humor in it. You think you were going to get off clean? I saw the way you looked at you. Like you were a damn hero. I couldn't compete with that. My chest tightened. So you lied. You took my son because you were jealous. No, he said. I protected him. From disappointment. From you. He took a step closer. You know what I did for that boy? I kept your letters. All of them. Birthday cards, too. Told him you stopped writing after the court case. Told him you didn't care. My hands curled into fists before I even knew it. He laughed under his breath, and the little punk still turned out soft. Backtalk, attitude. Thought he was smarter than me. So yeah, I disciplined him. Billed a couple times. Nothing serious. I saw red. You hit him. He shrugged. Don't get self-righteous, Jack. You weren't around. Someone had to raise him. Behind us, a voice broke the silence. You told me you didn't care. We both turned. Leo stood there in a hospital gown, for still hooked to his arm. Eyes locked on Mason. He looked taller than I imagined. Thinner. But the shape of his face, the way he looked right through Mason, it was like looking into a mirror. Dad, he said, barely a whisper. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Leo took one shaky step toward me, and that was it. My knees buckled. 10 years of grief crashed into me all at once, and I dropped to the floor in tears. We were sitting in the dim corner of the hospital lounge, just me and Leo, the low hum of machines and soft footsteps echoing around us. He had a blanket draped over his shoulders and a plastic cup of apple juice in his hand, like the kid I used to know, and a stranger all at once. His eyes, though, those were still the same. Sharp, curious, and older than they should have been. I didn't think I'd ever see you again, he said. I swallowed hard. I didn't think I'd get to. He stared at the floor. I wasn't even supposed to ride the bike. Mason said no, but I took it out anyway. Guess I got tired of being told what to do all the time. I nodded slowly. You're 16. You're supposed to push back. You're supposed to make mistakes. Leo looked up at me then. He said you stopped caring, that you walked away. I looked him in the eye. I never stopped caring. I never walked away. There was silence between us, heavy and hard. I found something last year, he said quietly, reaching down beside him. From his backpack, he pulled out a beat-up navy duffel bag. He unzipped it slowly and pulled out a stack of envelopes, some torn, some still sealed, all addressed in my handwriting. I stared, stunned. They were buried in the back of the garage, under a bunch of old boxes. Birthday cards, letters, photos. He flipped one open, revealing a crayon drawing I'd included in a card when he was 7. I read them all. I couldn't believe it at first. I thought maybe you'd written them later, like after the court stuff. No, I said. I wrote every one right after I lost custody. I sent them to Mason, to your mom. I begged to see you. His jaw tightened. He never gave me any of them. He said you were dangerous. I exhaled. That's what they told the court. Mason got up there and said I had a PTSD breakdown in front of you, that I scared you. They showed fake footage, fake messages. His eyes searched mine. Did you ever? No, I said, firm. I never laid a hand on you. Not once. I had rough days after I came back from overseas, yeah, but I never raised my voice to you, and I never would have hurt you. He looked away again. He hit me. Not all the time, but when I talked back, or didn't do something right. His voice dropped, once with a belt, left bruises. He said I needed to be tough. My stomach twisted. Leo, I didn't tell anyone, he said. I thought maybe I deserved it. But after I found your letters, everything started to make sense. I reached out slowly, carefully, and he didn't flinch. He let me place a hand over his. You didn't deserve any of that, I said. Not the lies. Not the way they twisted everything. And I'm so damn sorry I couldn't stop it. Leo looked up, blinking back tears. I think I always knew. Deep down. We sat there, silent but not uncomfortable. 10 years lost between us. But in that moment, I felt the first piece of it start to come back. Not fixed, not healed, but no longer broken. He didn't let go of my hand. Not for a long time. The next morning, a woman in slacks and a soft gray sweater knocked gently on the edge of Leo's hospital room door. Mr. Murphy? She asked. I stood, already bracing. That's me. She stepped in, offering a polite but cautious smile. My name's Dana White. I'm a social worker with Henderson County Child Protective Services. I'd like to speak with both of you separately, if that's okay. Leo didn't hesitate. I want my dad here. That hit me harder than anything Mason ever threw my way. Dana nodded. All right, we can start together. She pulled up a chair and opened a worn leather binder. Leo's injuries were consistent with a motorcycle crash, but the ER doctor also noticed some older bruises during examination. Different healing stages. That raised some questions. Leo stiffened. You're not in trouble, she said gently. We just want to make sure you're safe. Can you tell me about home life? Leo glanced at me, then back at her. Mason's not my dad. He acts like he is, but he's not. Dana wrote something down. He gets mad easy. Leo continued. If I talk back, if I don't finish something, if I roll my eyes, it's always my fault. He doesn't hit me all the time, but he has. Usually with his belt. Dana's face stayed neutral, but her pen moved faster. And my mom, Leo added bitterly. She just lets it happen. She says Mason's trying to build character. Dana turned to me. And your relationship with Leo? You've been absent on paper for nearly a decade. I felt the old anger tighten my chest. They took him from me, I said, steady but low. His mother and my best friend. They lied in court, said I was unstable. Mason faked security footage. Renee backed him up. Dana looked up sharply. You're saying your friend fabricated evidence? Yes. They claimed I had an episode and scared Leo, but it never happened. I wrote letters, birthday cards. None of them ever made it to him. He found them last year in a duffel bag Mason hid in the garage. Leo nodded. I can show you the bag. I kept it. Dana took a breath and nodded. All right. For now, Leo's going to remain here under hospital supervision. We're initiating an emergency placement review. It's clear there are safety concerns. I blinked. Wait, are you saying he won't go back with them? That's right, she said. Not until we assess the situation. Leo let out a shaky breath of relief. I don't want to go back. Dana stood. We'll move quickly. If you're willing to be considered for emergency custody, I'll need to visit your residence for an inspection. You can come today, I said. It's not fancy, but it's clean. Safe. She gave a small nod. Then we'll start the paperwork. As she left, Leo looked at me. So, what now? I sat beside him. Now? We fight. And this time, we do it together. I was coming back from the vending machine, 2 black coffees. One for me, one for Leo, when I heard the voices echoing down the hallway. You had no right to bring CPS into this, Renee snapped. I turned the corner and saw her standing outside Leo's room, arms crossed tight against her chest, eyes blazing. Mason stood beside her, jaw clenched, fist shoved into his coat pockets like he was holding back something dangerous. Back off, I said, keeping my voice low but firm. Mason stepped forward, eyes narrowed. You think you're gonna play hero now? After a decade of radio silence? You made sure it stayed that way, I said. Don't act surprised. Renee's voice wavered, but her words didn't. You manipulated him. That boy's confused, vulnerable. You show up out of nowhere, and suddenly he thinks you're the savior. He listed me as his emergency contact, I said. That wasn't manipulation. That was choice. Mason laughed bitterly. You really think they're gonna give him to you? You got a record now. You were stripped of custody for a reason. I stepped closer. You mean the fake footage you gave the court? The edited messages? I know what you did. He went quiet for a beat, eyes twitching. You can't prove anything. You sure about that? I said. Because Leo's talking now, and people are listening. That hit him. His face flickered, jaw twitching like he was chewing glass. Renee tried again, softer this time. You don't want this to turn ugly, Jack. Let it go. Let us handle things. You already did, I said, for 10 years. And look where it got him. Right then, the nurse at the front desk noticed the tension and stepped over. Is there a problem here? Mason's mouth opened, but I cut in first. They're not on Leo's visitor list. You might want to call security. The nurse didn't hesitate. You two need to leave now, or I will call them. Mason looked at me like he wanted to swing. Renee just stared, stunned, like she couldn't believe she was being told to leave anything. From behind the curtain, Leo's voice rang out, clear and scared. I don't want to go with them. Renee froze. I said I'm not going. Leo repeated. I want to stay with my dad. Mason's mouth twitched, but he turned and walked off without another word. Renee hesitated, then followed. As the hallway cleared, I stepped into Leo's room. He was sitting up in bed, pale but steady. I'm not going back, he said again. Promise me. I walked over, set the coffee on the table, and put my hand on his shoulder. I promise, kiddo, I said. You're not alone anymore. 3 days after the hospital interview, I heard the knock at my cabin door just after sunrise. The CPS officer, a different one this time, tall, young, clipboard in hand, stepped inside and did a quick sweep. Checked the fire alarms, the locks, the fridge, took a few photos, asked some questions. He didn't smile when he left, just gave me a nod and said, you'll get a call today. I spent the next 4 hours pacing the living room. When my phone finally rang, I didn't even wait for the second ring. Jack Murphy, I answered. Mr. Murphy, Dana White said, we're granting you emergency temporary custody, effective immediately. We'll set up a court date for a formal review, but Leo is yours for now. I sat down hard on the edge of the couch and pressed a hand over my face. I didn't cry, not exactly, but something cracked wide open in my chest, like 10 years of guilt and grief finally let go. An hour later, I pulled up outside the hospital with the truck already stocked with everything I could think of: extra blankets, canned chili, fresh socks, even a new toothbrush still in its package. Leo was waiting in a wheelchair near the exit, a duffel bag in his lap, the same one with all the letters he'd found. You ready? I asked, stepping out. He looked up at me, unsure. You sure you are? I smiled. Let's find out. The cabin sat tucked into the side of a low mountain, about 40 minutes from town. It wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that leaned rustic, and a porch that creaked when the wind kicked up. But it was mine. And more importantly, it was quiet, safe. Leo walked in, looked around slowly, taking in the wood-burning stove and the shelf full of old military books. It smells like cedar, he said. That's because it is. He smirked. I like it. Over the next few days, we settled into something that looked like a routine. Mornings started with pancakes or scrambled eggs. Afternoons were quiet. We took short walks, played cards, sometimes just sat on the porch with coffee and hot chocolate, watching birds. Nights, he slept with the duffel bag at the foot of his bed. He didn't talk much at first, but on the 4th day, as I was fixing a loose shelf in the garage, he wandered in. What's that? He asked. Carburetor from the old Honda I used to race, I said. wiping grease from my hands. Why? He shrugged. I kinda like engines. I paused. You serious? He nodded. Always wanted to learn. I handed him a wrench. Well then, let's get to it. We spent the next 2 hours elbow deep in rust and gunk, but the kid never flinched, asked good questions, listened when I explained torque, smiled when I showed him how to loosen a stuck bolt. Later that night, over grilled cheese and tomato soup, he looked up and said, I think I remember this. What? Your laugh, he said. I didn't know what to say, so I just reached across the table and squeezed his hand. He didn't pull away. It started with a knock at the cabin door. I opened it to find a delivery guy in a windbreaker, holding out a thick envelope. Jack Murphy, he asked. Yeah, you've been served. The guy didn't wait for a reply. He just handed me the envelope and walked off like it was just another Amazon package. I stared at it for a second, already knowing what it was. I didn't need to open it to feel the weight of it. Still, I tore the seal and scanned the first page. Petition for custody, filed by Mason Blake and Renee Murphy. They were suing me. Again, claiming I was manipulating Leo, violating a decade-old restraining order that should have never existed in the first place. Alleging that I was using my military background to intimidate and brainwash him. It felt like I'd stepped into a nightmare I thought I'd already escaped. I set the papers down and took a long breath. Then I walked to the garage, opened the side drawer of my old workbench, and pulled out a dog-eared business card. My old lawyer, Rachel Becker. She picked up on the second ring. Jack Murphy, she said, surprised. I was wondering when you'd call. I gave her a rundown, fast and clean. She didn't flinch. Send me everything, she said. Emails, documents, dates. We'll be ready. That night, Leo found me on the porch, staring at the trees like they might offer some kind of answer. I saw the papers, he said. I looked at him. I'm sorry, but, he shrugged. It was only a matter of time, right? They always want to be in control. There was a tightness in his jaw, something I hadn't seen since the hospital. You okay? I asked. Leo didn't answer at first. Then he pulled out his phone and handed it to me. Check the messages from Dylan. Dylan? My friend. He's seen a lot. Heard more. He's got proof. I opened the thread and scrolled through the screenshots. Text from Mason yelling at Leo for being ungrateful. A video clip where Mason's voice could be heard screaming. Something about discipline and not being a little punk. And then, the big one, a saved voicemail. I played it on speaker. Mason's voice came through loud and clear. You think that man's your father? He's nothing. You're gonna learn the hard way what happens when you turn your back on me. I looked at Leo. He was shaking, just barely. You've been holding on to this? I asked. He nodded. Didn't know what to do with it before, but now I do. Later that night, Rachel called me back. I forwarded her every file Dylan had sent. Jack, she said, voice clipped but steady. This is good. This isn't just hearsay. This is real, actionable evidence. I felt something lift off my chest. Just a little. For the first time in a decade, I wasn't walking into a courtroom alone. And this time, I had the truth on my side. The courtroom hadn't changed. Same dull carpet, same worn wooden benches, same smell stale coffee and dust. But this time, I wasn't the one walking in with nothing. This time, I had Leo. He sat beside me, dressed in a button-down shirt and jeans, his hair combed back, his shoulders square. He didn't look like a kid forced into court. He looked ready. And I knew, deep down, that whatever happened today, he wasn't afraid anymore. Rachel sat at my right, calm and focused. Mason and Renee were across the aisle with a lawyer in a navy suit and 2 white teeth. Mason was already fidgeting in his chair, knees bouncing like he couldn't wait to get this over with. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a tired expression, called the room to order. Let's begin. Mason's lawyer started the attack fast. Your Honor, my clients are seeking full legal and physical custody of Leo Murphy, citing serious concerns about Mr. Jack Murphy's mental stability, history of aggression, and ongoing manipulation of the minor. Rachel didn't flinch. She waited. They referred to prior court records, the lawyer continued, which indicate that Mr. Murphy was denied custody due to a documented PTSD episode witnessed by a third party and supported by digital evidence. My clients believe he is creating a narrative to turn the child against them. When the judge turned to Rachel, she stood slowly, smoothing her skirt. Your Honor, we have substantial new evidence to counter those claims, starting with the fact that the original evidence was fabricated. She handed over a flash drive. On this drive, you'll find screenshots of threatening text messages from Mr. Mason Blake, a recorded voicemail left on Leo's phone, and video evidence confirming emotional and physical abuse. You'll also find confirmation that Mr. Murphy has had no recorded incidents of aggression, legal trouble, or psychiatric instability in the 10 years since the original ruling. The judge nodded. And the child's position? Rachel looked at me. I gave a small nod. Then Leo stood up. I'd like to speak with the judge privately, he said. The judge tilted her head, surprised. You're certain? Yes, ma'am. She paused, then nodded again. Very well. We'll recess briefly for a private interview in chambers. 15 minutes passed like hours. When the judge returned, her face was unreadable. She looked down at the papers in front of her, then back up at all of us. Leo Murphy has clearly articulated a consistent, thoughtful account of his experience, she said. He described years of psychological control, physical punishment, and emotional neglect under Mr. Blake's care. He has provided detailed examples, all corroborated by evidence. Mason shifted in his seat. Renee looked straight ahead, frozen. The judge's eyes narrowed slightly. Additionally, in chambers, Mr. Blake's name came up regarding interference with mail and packages intended for the minor. Rachel stood again. If I may, Your Honor, my client would like to enter a motion to unseal old records for re-examination, based on the new evidence that the initial testimony and footage were falsified. Before the judge could respond, Mason snapped. "Oh, come on," he barked. "You're going to listen to a 16-year-old and a washed-up soldier over 10 years of parenting?" The courtroom fell silent. "Mr. Blake," the judge said coldly, "sit down." Mason ignored her. "The kid's been brainwashed. You all want me to just roll over while he tears this family apart?" Rachel leaned toward the mic. "Let the record show Mr. Blake is raising his voice and refusing to comply with court instruction." The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Blake, any further outburst, and I will hold you in contempt." Mason finally sat, jaw clenched, breathing hard. The judge shuffled her notes. "Calm again. This court finds compelling reason to believe the original custody ruling was made under false pretenses. Until a full investigation is complete, I am granting Mr. Jack Murphy temporary full custody of Leo Murphy." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Leo turned to me slowly, eyes wide. Pending a final ruling, the judge added, "This court advises all parties to prepare for further review." Mason slumped in his seat. Renee looked down at her lap. "And me?" I reached for Leo's hand, and this time, he held on tight. The final ruling came 3 weeks later. I got the call while I was under the hood of a dirt-covered Jeep in the driveway. Leo was next to me, handing me a wrench with grease on his fingers and a smirk on his face. He was finally starting to relax, like the fear that used to live behind his eyes had packed up and left for good. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Mr. Murphy?" Rachel said when I picked up. "Yeah, it's official. The court granted you permanent, full custody. Mason's been referred to the DA for perjury and endangerment." I didn't say anything right away, just closed my eyes and exhaled the longest breath of my life. When I opened them, Leo was watching me. "Well," I smiled, slow and steady. "You're home for good." He didn't say anything, just nodded once, then went back to the engine like it was the most natural thing in the world. A week later, we got a letter from Renee. It wasn't long, just a few paragraphs in her neat, too-perfect handwriting. She said she was stepping back permanently, giving up her parental claim. She'd started therapy, she wrote. For real this time. I didn't know what to think. I still don't. But Leo read it, nodded quietly, and folded it away in the duffel bag where he kept the past. We didn't talk about Mason. Not much, anyway. Last we heard, he was being charged. His career, whatever was left of it, was gone. I don't think Leo needed revenge, just freedom, and he finally had it. The cabin didn't feel quiet anymore. It felt alive. We'd get up early, cook pancakes or bacon, then spend the afternoon elbow-deep in engine parts or hiking the ridge trail behind the house. Leo had picked out an old Yamaha frame from the salvage yard, and we started rebuilding it together, piece by piece. One night, while we were eating dinner on the porch, Leo said, "I think I want to enter it in the regional engineering competition this fall." I looked at him. "The bike?" "Yeah, custom build category." I raised my eyebrows. "You think it'll be done in time?" He grinned. "If I have the right teacher." We worked harder after that. Every afternoon, every weekend. Welded the frame, replaced the suspension, tuned the carburetor. I taught him how to calculate gear ratios, how to test voltage, how to trust his hands. The day of the competition, he wore his one good flannel and a name tag that said Leo Murphy, independent builder. When the judge asked him who helped him with the design, Leo didn't even pause. "My dad," he said. "He taught me everything." I felt something crack open in my chest. Not grief this time, not loss. Just pride. The kind that comes when something broken finally fits back together. Later that night, as we drove home in silence, Leo leaned his head back against the seat and said, "You know, I don't feel like I'm missing anything anymore." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He was right. We were whole.